If soap and clean water are not available, use an alcohol-based product to clean your hands. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers significantly reduce the number of germs on skin and are fast-acting. Follow these simple steps when using an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. 1. Apply product to the palm of your hand. 2. Rub hands together. And 3. Rub the product over all surfaces of hands and fingers until hands are dry. This is a message from the Ministry of Health.
From St. George's, Grenada, this is the latest breaking news story.
Lessen the mosquito population today. Keep dengue and chikungunya at bay. Get rid of mosquito breeding sites. Big threats come with those small bites. Change water in flower pots daily. Cover water storage containers properly. The use of insect repellents can go a long way. Buy one that contains DEET today. Tires and white goods are home to these vectors. Dispose of them using proper and effective measures. Air conditioning fans and mosquito nets will aid in prevention, but absolute safety comes from proper sanitation.
The preceding was a message from the Ministry of Health.
And good morning and Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. Yeah, you weren't expecting to hear this voice today, were you? Good morning, Grenada. Good morning, world. It's Christmas morning and Christmas blessings to each and every one of you, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Good morning and Merry Christmas to you. Yeah, it's a Christmas Day edition of Hard Talk. Joined in studio, a good buddy, you know. Yeah, by Mr. Gregory Bowen Jr. Yeah, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Scott.
All right.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Yes, man. And you're doing a special program today. Today's your program. You do anything today, you know.
All right.
So what are we really discussing today? Christmas Day 2018. What are we discussing today?
All right, so the name of the program today, I've chosen to call it A Black Christmas. You know, you've heard about a white Christmas.
Yeah.
And in our society, I think a lot of people have the notion that Christ has been given to us by, you know, the white man to indoctrinate the black people, and it's an oppressive religious system.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to discuss today is Christmas from celebrating the birth of Christ, I would say, from a biblical point of view, and actually see how the Bible includes black people and how this ties into Christmas, the black people in the Bible.
Okay. So we're celebrating not a white Christmas. We are no snow down here.
We have no snow here.
Yeah, we are no snow down. And then there's this misconception among a lot of people that only white things are good.
Right.
Like
yes.
they say a white Christmas and your sins are black and your and so on. So they try to make it look like black things are bad.
Right.
But you're saying a black Christmas.
Yeah, I'm saying a black Christmas.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you're saying this from what perspective now? You've mentioned people's perspective of the Christianity and the religion and so on and Christmas. But what perspective are you speaking from on it being a black Christmas?
Okay, so we must admit that if the slaves who came to the Caribbean were Christianized by slave owners, that gives a bad look to Christianity. Because if the God of the Bible sanctioned the oppression and suppression of black persons,
Mm-hmm.
then it will be hard for us as black people to accept that God will have us subjugated, should I say, and looked upon as nothing, right? I mean, if all men are created equal, how can you tell me that your God sanctions you oppressing me? When really and truly, if you look at the Bible and you read it, He's actually with the oppressed and delivers the oppressed from the oppressor.
So probably that's the reason they didn't want us to read.
Probably that's the reason why they didn't want
If
to
you
read
could
the Bible.
read, then you could read the Bible.
Yeah, and then you see that what he's saying is definitely not true.
What about some people saying that different parts of the Bible have been structured in such a way as to keep people oppressed? Obey your rulers, etc., etc., etc. That some parts of the Bible are structured in that way to keep you oppressed.
That's a good question. I think we will dive into it, but I would say not so. I believe that a godly ruler leads to stability. Maybe you can tell us about, look at Saddam Hussein, right? I'm not saying he was a godly ruler, but when a ruler is taken out of power, sometimes the country goes into civil unrest. But if you have a good leader who doesn't oppress the people, the leader leads by certain laws, and then there is peace. What happens is that when we read in the Bible that you're supposed to obey your leaders and masters, when there's a bad leader, and the bad leader uses these teachings to tell you to follow me, and then it casts contempt upon the author of the Bible, because it seems as if he's giving support to this. But if the leader would read the Bible and follow the Bible as it says, then his rule would be one that benefits the people, and the people would be happy with such teachings that there should be law and order, right? So that we can get things done.
All right. In the context of Christmas, though, today is Christmas Day. I've been around for the day so far, and roads are pretty much empty except for people who are going to visit friends and relatives today, and all businesses closed. In fact, I think I only saw 2 gas stations open, and that's about it.
Okay.
But nearly everywhere else is closed today, and so on. People taking this time to spend with their family and so on. From the biblical perspective, tell us what you've learned about Christmas and so on, from the biblical perspective.
Well, I wouldn't say that you can learn the celebration of Christmas itself from the Bible, right? Now, it has not been told us to celebrate the birth of Christ. But if you go from the Bible, in the book of Luke, we see that angels celebrated the birth of Jesus Christ. And wise men, those who were wise, who were not of his people, they were not of the church, what you should say, right? They were the ones who recognized the coming of the Lord, while God's own people didn't recognize it. And they offered him precious gifts, spices and gold. This would also be incorporated into the study in a really interesting way. So they were humble. It doesn't give us an account of merrymaking in the sense that we know. The drinking, they worshiped the Lord, and they came to find him, and they were led by him. They were looking for him, and God led them. So I think if you really want to celebrate the birth of Christ, we should let God lead us in the scripture to find Christ in our hearts and lives.
So today should be a day more about remembering the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and also spending time with your family as much as possible. But I think a lot of people right now, they're still sleeping off last night.
Yes.
St. George last night, you had a lot of people with they were all over town shopping and tiring themselves out, and then they could barely get up this morning. Some are listening this program from in their bed this morning. And to those of you listening in your beds, a special good morning too. Time to get up. It's after 10. Time to get up now. So you had some of them that are listening from their beds, and so this morning. And we say to them that it's a good time to spend some time with the family and so on, but also remember the reason for today. Remember the reason for today. It's not about reindeer and Santa Claus.
Yeah.
It's not about snowmen. We know nothing about no snow. All we know down here is snow cone. We know nothing about those snowman. Snow cone. That's what we know. Yeah? So give us a little bit more on Black Christmas.
Okay, on Black Christmas. So we may have to get it in a circular fashion, but again, starting, we know that the birth of Christ happened and angels announced the glad tidings of the coming of Christ to some shepherds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, wise men came and they found Jesus Christ. When we now go to the book of Luke, chapter 4, right? When Jesus actually began his ministry, he quoted from the book of Isaiah and told the people that this had been fulfilled in their ears, right? And we'll read it, and then you'll see the import of why I said that. That was the reason he was born, to actually do this ministry, and then he announces it. But we must go back to where the prophecy actually came from to see if we can gather some more information. I would say that I don't think any of the viewers will know where this would lead, but it will lead to the black people and the Caribbean islands in a way that I think we have never seen before. So Luke chapter 4, right? Verse 14 says, "And Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit into Galilee, and there went out a fame of him through all the region round about. And he taught in the synagogues, being glorified of all. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he had anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord." So Jesus came, his whole mission was to set free the captives, right? And we notice that though the people who may have enslaved us would have taught us, would have introduced us somewhat to their I don't want to say, their notion of God and Christianity, that we were captives. And if we were captives, Jesus' work is to set captives free, right?
Yeah.
So it is no marvel that he would set the black man free. Okay? Now, when we go back to the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, we'll notice something really interesting, because he quoted from Isaiah 61, and it's just a continuation, right, to reach 61. But in Isaiah 41, where it becomes very pivotal, God actually addressed some islands. And I'll start in verse 1. "Keep silence before me, O islands, and let the people renew their strength. Let them come near, let them speak. Let us come near together to judgment. Who raised up the righteous man from the east, called him to his foot, and gave the nations before him, and made him rule over kings? He gave them as the dust of his sword, and as driven stubble to his bow. He pursued them and passed safely, even by the way that he had not gone with his feet. Who had wrought and done it, calling the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, the first, and with the last, I am he. The isles saw it and feared. The ends of the earth were afraid, drew near, and came. They helped every one his neighbor, and every one said to his brother, be of good courage. I'll just pause here. We notice that God is talking to a Hebrew prophet, and he's mentioning islands. That's rather strange, because we haven't seen in the Bible where anything really happened in the islands concerning Israel and those times, right? But God is specific. He repeats it. He begins by saying the islands drew near to him, right? And then again in verse 5, the isles saw it and feared. So the isles saw something, but what we just read in context was that God raised up someone, he said, from the east, right? So we know that, and I'll just show this in here, the Bible teaches us in the New Testament that these things that were written for the children of Israel, as which I guess most Christians believe, they were types or examples, and a type is a pattern of whom the ends of the earth are come. So you know, they say we go into New Jerusalem, right? That's because there was an old Jerusalem. And we go into the heavenly Canaan. It's because the same pattern, God led the people out of captivity as he's leading us out of Babylon. You know, Babylon is a famous thing. Many people believe in coming out of Babylon. We know the famous songwriter sang a song called Exodus.
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley. And God led the people out of captivity, led them through the wilderness, led them into heavenly Canaan. So what happened to the Israelites there was a type. Quite interesting that we noted before is that slavery was in the Caribbean. And a lot of people, some people will tell you it has been for about 400 years, where if you look it up, that might be disputed, right? But it would make sense that, as the Bible tells us, anyone who believes in Christ is Abraham's seed and heir to the promise. This is how we have been engrafted into Israel, right? So, since there are Christians, and many Christians in our island, we expect that we are spiritual Jews, spiritual Israelites, right? Because we all are going to the New Jerusalem.
Okay.
Every Christian is going to the New Jerusalem, right? From every tribe. So this was a type to see how God will actually do in the real thing at the ends of the world. When you think about the ends of the earth, let's say you were living back in antiquity, where would you think of the ends of the earth being?
Well, as far as you could see, because you would think that you're dropping off the end of the earth at the end of the horizon or so on. So you think that's just as far as you could see.
Right.
Or the far that men know of.
Right.
And you would think anything beyond that is we're going to fall off the end.
Right. So when Christopher Columbus was sailing, they were going to the ends of the earth, and they would fall off in their mind.
Yeah.
But what did he actually...
He didn't actually think he would fall off. He thought that he may not fall off, or he would not take the chance.
Oh, okay.
But there were people with him that still had it in the back of their mind, we're going to fall off the end,
Okay.
Yeah.
But when he was reaching their notion of the ends of the earth, what did he find?
The islands.
He found the islands. So then it makes sense when we read a little later down some statements that link the ends of the earth with the islands. Right? Now that would be really big, because God is addressing a group of people in the islands here, right? And he's saying he has called up one for them. That means he has concern for the people in the islands. And there are different islands, but we know that generally in the islands, there aren't white people.
The original people were not, but you had some that came over, and then they brought the Africans, and they brought the East Indians and so on with them afterwards.
Right.
But generally, most of the populations are Afro-Caribbean.
Right. Right. Now, continuing on in the same chapter of Isaiah 41, we notice here that in verse 25, because it's a continuation, though we skip some of the things we don't need as yet. He says, I have raised up one from the north, and he shall come. From the rising of the sun shall he call upon my name, and he shall call upon princes as upon mortar, and as the potter treaded the clay. Who had declared from the beginning that we may know, and before time that we may say he is righteous? Yea, there is none that shew it. Yea, there is none that declare it. Yea, there is none that heareth your words. The first, God said he's the first, shall say to Zion, Behold, behold them, and I will give to Jerusalem one that bringeth good tidings. Pause. He's talking about the islands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says Jerusalem. So that would mean that the Jerusalem here is not Jerusalem of old.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, it's no stretch of the imagination that Jerusalem will be the place where this person he calls spiritual Jerusalem of Revelations, as we see, will be the place where he calls this person from, right? Because Jerusalem was a place where God, it's called the city of the great king, King David, of whom Christ was the son of David, the Messiah, the one who we celebrate Christmas of, right? He was the epitome, the highest fulfillment of this. The birth of Christmas, the son of David. He was born, right? And isn't that what the angel told Mary? The son of the highest, right? And we'll read that. We'll read it a little later. So he, just reiterating verse 27, he shall say unto Zion, Behold them, and I will give to Jerusalem one that bringeth good tidings. So the gospel, good tidings. And we saw that Jesus claimed that God, in Isaiah 61, had anointed him to preach that good tidings. So then, I guess, even though we don't know exactly where this is going, we can expect that again God will have a messenger that he raised up in the isles. He said the isles saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the isles, he would have this person. So that means, and where that person would be doing this, representing God, will logically be Jerusalem. So that means that in a real sense, there is a spiritual Christmas or birth of, and let me just say the word, this quickly, I wonder if I should even say. The word Messiah is a term, it is a term that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. Jesus Christ was the King. But if you get into deep studies, Jesus is king, he is prophet, but there are other kings, there are other prophets. He is the Lord's anointed, but surely Saul was the Lord's anointed. All the kings of Israel was the Lord's anointed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if God says that we don't want to go into the realms of people thinking about blasphemy, but let us not confuse the word anointed and Messiah as being only about into Jesus. Jesus was that, but he was more than that. He is God incarnate in the flesh, right? He is God incarnate in the flesh. But if you are of God, you should be anointed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you are anointed by the Lord. Messiah means anointed.
Even John the Baptist had to be anointed.
Anointed, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
King
just,
David had to be anointed.
right. He was the Lord's anointed, of whom Jesus came for the throne of David.
Mm-hmm.
So he was Messiah. He was the king of Israel. So when you say the Messiah, the anointed one, the king of Israel, but remember, there were other kings of Israel before him, before they were taken into Babylon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this sense, when we say God raises up a type of David in the end, like Christ, is nothing strange, because Jesus told his disciples, ye are the light of the world, when he said, but we know Jesus is the light of the world. So in that sense, when Christ is in us and we speak, it is not us that speak, not I that live, Paul said, but it will be Christ. So it's nothing strange in this manner. Now, this is new, may be startling to some, may not be. But if we actually take note of what was said, he referenced this person as coming from the north and from the east, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why this is important is because the book of Daniel chapter 11, right before it talks about the coming of Jesus Christ, right? And Michael shall stand up. He talks about a power from the north, right? The enemy of God. That's the last thing that happens. He was waging a war, but they said tidings from the north and the east troubled him, right? So we know the last power in the book of Revelations is Babylon. Come out for my people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Babylon. So a power associated with Babylon, the king of Babylon, what troubled him was tidings from the north and the east. So where that tidings comes from?
I think come from the islands.
It is, because that's what we read. It's from the islands. He said that is what troubled him.
But what islands?
That's the good question.
So it can be the Indonesian islands, the Pacific islands,
All right, good.
the West Indian islands,
That's good. So we'll have
or
to...
the Comoros islands.
So you're asking good questions. I think the only way... Actually, no, not the only way. There are some ways that... there are some things that we're going to use to narrow down the islands.
Mhm.
Right? Now, since we know that... I'll just say this. The Bible talks about a new heaven and a new earth, right? In Isaiah 65. And there's something there, we're going to read it. You will notice that if you don't understand this, there will be chaos, because in verse 17 of Isaiah 65, God says that he creates a new heavens and a new earth, right? But, I'll go through it, I'll read it. From verse 17, for behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come into mind. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. Even before I go into that, was there much slavery in, where was slavery found in the islands, predominantly? Black slavery.
All the islands. The large islands. Well, all the islands, basically.
Okay.
Because there were even slave revolts in nearly all the islands. So, basically all the islands.
So you say in Indonesia and those places?
Well, no. In the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean. Indonesian, so they probably did have, but not at the level of what they talk about in the British West Indies.
Right.
Or, well, the West Indies in general. You had the British West Indies and Dutch West Indies and so on. So, not at the level that they had it in the West Indies. And so usually when you talk slavery, you're talking these parts.
Okay. So then, if God is calling... And first, I'd just like to ask you a question. Moses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was he a slave?
He was a child of slaves.
Right. So the person that God called to
But
lead
he did
them...
grow up as a slave.
Nope.
Right.
You're correct. Called to lead them, he was from a people enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ, the Jews, you can see, Jesus told the Jews they were in bondage. They had Roman oppression. Rome, they were like captives of Rome, though they had, some level of freedom. It's not like being whipped and everything. And the Jews actually wanted them to free them from Romans, right? Oppression. Mm-hmm. So they were in bondage. They were slaves. Most of the sin. And Jesus came from, just like Moses, from a people of slaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if he has to use somebody to call people out of Babylon, out of captivity, out of which other islands you think the islands would be?
So you're saying basically that you believe that this person will come from the Caribbean region?
Yes.
In your estimation?
In my estimation.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And then we'll see why. All right? In as we're going to continue in Isaiah 65. So verse 17 says, "For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered nor come into mind. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem, and joy in my people, and the voice of weeping shall no more be heard in her, nor the voice of crying. There shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that had not filled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old." Now pause. In the new heavens and new earth, right? Should there be any death?
No.
But we just read a child will die at 100 years old.
But if you're 100 years old, you're the child of somebody, but you ain't no child again.
Yes. So this would be a difficult passage to understand.
Mm-hmm.
The way, I know what we should do with it. I can tell you. And what makes us know that this is not the literal time when Jesus actually comes and sets up his kingdom on earth is because it says, "But the sinner being 100 years old shall be accursed." Now, actually, in the new heavens and the new earth, there would be no sinners, because Revelations, as we can read a little later, tells us that hellfire is not burning now, because the wicked came up to take the camp of the saints, right? And then God rained down fire from heaven upon them. So with this in mind, we know that there is no eternal hellfire burning now. It is not biblical. So after hellfire is burnt on earth, only after then can there be a new heavens and a new earth, right? Mm-hmm. After God recreated. So then there'll be no wicked person to be accursed, because the devil and his angels will be burnt up. Now, so someone may say to themselves, well, how could this book be true? It is because there is more than one application to the new heavens and the new earth. You know, the Bible tells us that we are dead in trespasses and sins. So we need to be born again, born anew. So we are new creatures in Christ when we are born again. So when the gospel went forth, Jesus actually told the people that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Mm-hmm. But he said the kingdom of heaven is within you. As we read, Jesus came to proclaim the good tidings and the acceptable year of the Lord. He came at a specific time. There was a prophecy and he came right on the time. He said the time is fulfilled. So in a sense, that the kingdom of heaven was at hand, even in Jesus' time, you can see how that would have been a new heavens and a new earth. But it was not the restoration that the people thought it would be. And they rejected him as a result of their misunderstanding of scriptures. Now, in this way, I would say that, do you know what do we call this part of the world the new what? The new world, right?
Yeah, they say they call this the new world. Well, they started calling us the new world, and after they find that was a little too nice, they separated. So part end up the new world, and we end up the third world.
Oh, we end up the third world, okay.
So now, like the northern part, they end up the first world, and we even end up second, you know. We end up as third world, you know.
Wow.
We wasn't even lucky to fall in second. We get third.
Yeah. Okay. So, as we just see, we're in a new world, in a place where there isn't persecution for our faith, right? And in Isaiah 65, if we continue, we'll notice, we would notice something here. It says, and verse 21, "And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall build vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For as the days of a tree," very important, "are the days of my people, and mine elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth for trouble. For They are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. Verse 25, I skip 24. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and the dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in my holy mountain, saith the Lord. So, though people would be dying, it's a place of comparative safety for his people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you notice God has afforded in the new world safety, because before, being a Christian was serious business. You lost your life for it.
Mm-hmm.
All from the disciples.
Feed lions with you, man.
Yeah.
Feed lions with you. Hang you on a cross, sometimes upside down.
Yeah.
Burn you.
Yeah.
Chop your head off. Stone you. Throw you off cliff. Etc. Etc. Etc.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They would do all that. But now, we're actually in the place where we call the new world. And we're going to jump into where the islands feature even more in what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it fits, right? A place where we get to learn about God unmolested. And the greatest country, America, right, is a country that is based on freedom of religious, right? So it's actually Christians that fled across there. And from there, a lot of the religious, you can say I don't want to use the word crusades, but the gospel came from there. People, missionaries came from America, right?
But isn't it also due to the fact the basis of the American society is why we have a lot of the things that happen out of America happening out of America? The religious freedom, until it's to the point of people have the freedom not to have a religion, or to change whatever religion's foundation into whatever they want and call it what they want and just start that as a religion. They actually have a church in the United States. They call it the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Okay.
That's actually the name of a registered church in the United States.
Okay.
The Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. So that the fact, yes, they were based on the different people running away from persecution in the old world to the new world. But as the freedom that they speak about in the religious context in places like the United States change the foundation of what is being said in the Bible. Even change the foundation of what is Christmas. We don't see any reference within the Bible to Christmas trees.
Okay.
No reference to Christmas lights. No reference to Saint Nick or Santa Claus. No reference to these sort of things. The gift giving, yes, we could pass that one. We could say that one pass.
Okay.
Because at the birth of Christ, you had the gift giving and that sort of thing. You had the three wise men and so on. So you had the gift giving and that. But the other aspects of it, we don't see that in the Bible. So that the foundation of what Christmas is supposed to be has changed as well. I think a lot of what you're talking about is taking it back to away from the white Christmas or the whitewashing of what is really Christmas and what should be Christmas, to what it should really be and what it should really represent. So I think that's a lot of what you're getting at today. A lot of what Christmas really should be and what the Bible says about Christmas itself, hence the Black Christmas.
Okay. I would say that a lot of the running down and changing of Christianity started before America. Because largely there were not the many churches, yes, as they are now because of America. But before that, Christianity and all the pagan festivals that entered the church, where did it come from? Rome. So long before America, and when there was union of the church, and it's quite interesting that the church went from being killed, right? And it's hard talk, but Saint Peter, right? If he really got the keys, right? And they were Jewish, right? How come in the progression of time, it seems to be one race alone that has been getting that key from St. Peter. And then...
Are we sure that is the case?
Huh?
Are we sure that is the case?
Good question, but have you ever heard about another race getting those keys? And if the Catholics, right, and this is not, I love Catholics. If they are accused of giving us, a false religion, Christianity, and they were involved in the enslaving of the black people, you can see why black people would have a problem if you come to them in that way and try to... Now think about it.
Is any church hand clean of slavery? No church's hand, that is, except for the church that just make, is clean of slavery. The Anglican Church was involved. The Catholic Church was involved. I don't know how long the Seventh-day Adventist Church would have been around if there would have been slave owners that were Seventh-day Adventists. The Mormons would have been involved. So most of the older churches would have been involved in some form or format
And what
with
race were they?
slavery. Mainly white.
Very interesting, right? And I'll just reiterate, this is nothing racist, but you have to, if you want to reach people for God, he that winneth souls, the Bible says, is wise. And it also says in Proverbs 18, a brother offended is harder to be won than a castle. So you have to be wise to approach, the black people, some of which are good people who would just don't want to hear anything about this because of how Christ has been taught to them, right? So I would say that America, though it gives freedom, it is better that a man worships in the way that he chooses. Even if he worships a
Flying spaghetti monster.
monster.
You could look it up, folks, on Google it. There's actually a church called the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Yeah.
Instead of forcing somebody to worship God, because you would make a class of people who don't love God and who God would find as worse. Because you notice we as Christians, sometimes persons who go to church may do even more evil deeds than a man who is out of church. So it makes no sense to force a man to worship God because he will not be saved. God cannot accept hypocrisy. He condemns it. So you bringing worship to him when you don't love him is abhorrent. The judgment is more for that person than a person who is a sinner, right? Jesus' strongest rebukes are for religious leaders. So I would say that though there comes the risk, but that risk came even in the Garden of Eden. God gave the pagan Eden freedom to choose who they worship, him or the serpent. So God is the one who has given freedom of religion. That is his mode of operation. When the disciples asked Christ if they should call down fire upon the Samaritans for not accepting Jesus, he told them they didn't know what spirit they were of. He came to save men. God does not do that. Though he punishes the sinner in the end, is going to be just. Because if I wrong you, right, and God says, Sheldon, don't pick up a 4 brass and deal with me. But God doesn't deal with me himself. It's like God encouraging the wrong. So he tells you don't do it because he'll do it in a just way. So he does punish the sinner in the end to be just. But he has not given man a right to dictate the what another man should worship. What he give you the right
So who want to worship the flying spaghetti monster could worship it?
Yes.
Okay.
Who
There are
wants
lots
that?
of people worshiping the flying spaghetti monster. It's actually, I'll tell you, it's actually a church.
What's the
It
numbers
does-
you have there?
It does exist. They don't have the numbers here, but it exists in New Zealand and New Zealand in the United States, etc., etc. So it does exist.
Okay.
Yeah. Different
Right.
countries.
All right.
Yeah. But I tend to find some of what you're saying is some of the same things that you hear the Rastafarians saying.
Okay.
Some of the same things that you're saying now. Yeah, locks. I do want the locks.
Yeah.
I find some of the stuff you're saying is some of the same stuff that we hear from our brothers and sisters in the Rastafarian faith, whether the 12 tribe, Nyabingi, Bobo Shanti, etc., etc. You hear the same sort of line coming out at the Rastafarianism, and they have their ceremony around now too. They have Kwanzaa. That starts tomorrow. I'm not too sure which one of the camps that they're starting at, but they have the Kwanzaa ceremony that they celebrate, which is an American something that came about but has been embraced by the Rastafarian movement here in Grenada. So they do have Kwanzaa that's taking place. I'm surprised none of the news media has seriously picked up on that one yet, that Kwanzaa is celebrated in Grenada. They must check the members of ROC, Rastafari Organization. So it's Rastafari Organization for it's just, the C is messing me up. I'm trying to remember what it stands for, but they could check different members of the organization to find out what that is about. We're quickly heading up to the 11 o'clock hour, which means that we're coming up on our 1 hour mark. Anything specific you want to get into at this point as we run into the final few?
Okay, so I would just read Isaiah 45 to tell you why I believe it's from the Caribbean.
The Caribbean islands.
The Caribbean islands.
But strange enough, I've listened to the Rastafarians. They've said most of what you said, but that part seems
Missing.
not to have been taken up.
Yes, and very interesting. I was shocked to find that there is a link, but they have it wrong, eh? But I think you would be shocked to see how God has moved in the Bible. The book of Isaiah speaks about Ethiopia and stuff, and if you read the New Testament, you know that the Ethiopian eunuch accepted Jesus and was baptized, right? And the church in Ethiopia, the Abyssinian church, they had been worshiping God for many centuries and had nothing to do with Rome. And some people may take it the wrong way, as some black folks who don't want to hear the white man's religion. They were worshiping Christ in Ethiopia, the Abyssinian Empire, unmolested by Rome. They had this church, and for so long. One interesting thing, though, they kept the Sabbath as well, but in keeping with this, what I'm going to read here, it's about Cyrus, and you will see a link that is strange. I will say that, do you know that the signs that Jesus prophesied would come before his coming, the dark day and the falling of the stars, would have occurred in 1780 is the day that it was recorded that over New England, in the New World and parts of Canada, was the dark day. And there was no natural phenomenon to explain that dark day. We can't get into everything now, right? But I can tell you, when you actually see the link, that was the day Jesus talked about the persecution, that shortly after the persecution, that these signs would happen. And you know that Christians were being persecuted by, as you said, like the Catholic Church, so they ran to America, right? But he said, if those days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. So there was a time period called 42 months. And when you study the Bible, there's Bible texts that tell you that God has given us a day for a year. 42 months is 1,260 years, right? 1,260 years, and that's the time that the Catholic Church had reigned in supremacy from 538 to 698. But shortly before that time, America had been springing up, and they had made a abolition of slavery act in around Pennsylvania, right? And that year is when the dark day happened. Now, in the book of Isaiah 58, God actually says that there are people. Now, there are many white persons who are God's children. But here's what God says and why it links. I hope we have time, but I'll tell you how this adds up.
You have roughly about 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Isaiah 58 said, cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and shew my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek me daily, and delight to know my paths, as a nation that did righteousness, and forsook not the ordinance of their God. They ask of me the ordinances of justice, they take delight in approaching to God. Wherefore we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul, and thou takest no knowledge? Behold, in the day of your fast ye find pleasure, and exact all your labors. Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of wickedness. Ye shall not fast as ye do this day, to make your voice to be heard on high. Is it such a day that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast and an acceptable day to the Lord? Then verse 6 says, is not this the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke? Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh, then shall thy light break forth as the morning, and thy health shall spring forth speedily. So God is saying, when you set the oppressed free, your light will spring forth speedily, God's people. Now, they are good white persons, but you have to admit, and like you said, other churches, Protestants who were even running from oppression from Rome, were doing the same thing. They were doing the same thing. They were guilty before God. They may point the hand at Rome, but they are guilty, and probably even more guilty.
But who wiped out the original population of the United States?
Okay.
It wasn't the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Poor the Catholic Church always getting Poor the Catholic Church. But yeah, so I think no one's hand is clean in that one. All churches have, the original churches have a part.
And not only that, even the let's just say God has a remnant people, I do believe. But when God sends a messenger, who does he rebuke the most? The remnant. Who hates God's messenger the most? Is it the so-called enemies? No. God chastises those whom he loves. So when I say that your light shall break forth, the signs of Jesus' coming it came when they started to at the Abolition Acts. 1833. Everybody look this up. That was the day that the stars fell from heaven. You could research it. It was another abolition act. When they set the captives free, God will give you light, more understanding, and then God will set you free. Do unto others as you like them to do unto you. If you don't set the black man free or any captives, because it goes deeper than that, I will not set you free. And it goes on. You know, the Bible says a day is with the Lord as 1,000 years. How long do we spend in heaven with Christ? 1,000 years, right? Yeah, the Bible says it's 1,000 years.
1,000 years.
So it's like a day with him, a Sabbath rest. You get to rest from all your labors and your war. You have made it into the heavenly rest, the heavenly Canaan. I guess whichever churches you are will believe in that, the heavenly rest, Hebrews 4. He swore that they would not enter into his heavenly rest. So the principle of Sabbath goes deeper than a day. As he goes on to explain, you have to do these things to truly be a Sabbath keeper. And one thing that it is highly important, he actually says that when the very next verse says, then shalt thou call, and the Lord shall answer. Thou shalt cry, and he shall say, here am I. If thou take away the midst of thee the yoke, the putting forth of the finger, and speaking vanity. You know, sometimes we have the expression, you must give the mouth a rest. Mm-hmm. A lot of the strife and confusion, unrest happens because of what we say. So to truly be, if you're truly at rest with God, you have the righteousness of Christ, you won't be speaking evil of your neighbor. Mm-hmm. You will not be speaking evil about your neighbor. And also, the Sabbath is what sets God apart as the ruler of the world, right? We worship God on the Sabbath. So he says, this is holy, this is for me. So it's like what reminds you that I'm the creator, I'm God. So speaking evil of dignitaries, right? Would you say that from what we just expressed is connected with Sabbath breaking? What causes civil unrest?
To an extent, yeah.
you start up and the people start talking bad about the leader, then there's unrest on east and there's a revolt. And that's what happened in heaven. Satan is started like that, causes unrest among the angels through evil speaking. Now to end off, I wish we had more time. We can stretch it a little bit.
Probably by another 5.
Another 5.
Yeah, because we have to put on the minister's messages.
Okay,
have to be in circulation.
So we have to
put
respect
it on
our ministers.
Yeah.
Yes. So now Isaiah 44, we're going back to now the islands, the Caribbean islands, and why I believe this. Isaiah 44 verse 27 is going to talk about the person, and there was a type of whom this Cyrus who actually fulfilled this. He said in the original context, but we know that Revelation talks about spiritual Babylon, which has happened in the end time, and as we've seen, the message comes to the Caribbean. Oh, I was saying the Caribbean, the Isles. So we want to see where in the Isles. That saith to the deep, be dry, and I will dry up thy rivers. That saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure. Even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. Thus saith to the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden to subdue nations before him. I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the 2-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which called thee by thy name, am the God of Israel. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. I made peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Drop down ye heavens from above, and let the skies pour down righteousness. Let the earth open, and let them bring forth salvation. And let righteousness spring up together. I, the Lord, have created it. So he's talking about Cyrus, but notice he said he would dry up the deep. What happened is that Cyrus to overcome Babylon, right? Which was a very fortified place. So the guys were feasting. For the only way Cyrus conquered them, God said he dried up the deep. He had to divert the river Euphrates, and then God said he will open the gates. So that's how he got to get up into Babylon, right? Mm-hmm. And we made the connection. A brother offended is as hard to win, Proverbs 18, as a castle. So it's a similar thing. The black people have been offended, but God called Cyrus now to set these captives free. And I'll just tell you, we come trapped by anger and hatred and all these things. But if we can see that God loves us, and God, the Bible shows that God esteems us highly and has given us such a great gift, then that would, I think, appease persons and let them realize that it's not a whitewashed book. Isaiah 42, okay, I know we have to go here a little, there a little to get it, says from verse 10, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praises from the end of the earth. Ye that go down to the sea, and all that are therein, the isles and inhabitants thereof. So it's getting obvious that it's in the isles. Let the wilderness and the cities thereof lift up their voice, the villages that Kedar doth inhabit. Now this word Kedar is very interesting. It actually means black man or dark-skinned man. Mm-hmm. So in the islands where there's black people and dark-skinned persons, let them give glory unto the Lord and declare his praise in the islands. The Lord shall go before them. So he says this, but I'm skipped to verse 15. I will make waste mountains and hills, dry up all their herbs, and I'll make the rivers islands, and I will dry up the pools. So he said of Cyrus, right? Mm-hmm. He revealed these hidden mysteries to him and showed that he was called by name, right, to do this work. And he will set the people free. But here we see when God dry up the rivers, what he's revealing, islands. So if God hides a mystery, no man can open what God has shut or sealed. And I guess I bet you, right? You've never heard this before?
Never.
Never.
No.
Never, right? So now we knowing that what will be revealed to the island, to him, is really the islands, and he's being called by name, is evidencing of himself that it is unsealed. And where we hearing it today? In the islands. So then this is the greatest proof by itself that it's the Caribbean islands that we are going to hear this from, because we're hearing today.
So in other words, you're saying that there are great things that we should be looking out for coming from the Caribbean islands.
Yes.
Yes.
Even Grenada.
Especially Grenada.
Especially Grenada. You know?
Well, I'm sorry we can't take the discussion much further. We're on the brink as it is right now. We have 2 minutes remaining. Folks, those of you on the 89.5 frequency, CRFM, yes, just remember at soon as we're done here, we're going to be playing the Christmas messages. And those are the messages by the various parliamentarians, as well as by the Governor General, the Commissioner of Police, the Bishop of the Catholic Church, Reverend Prescott, and all of the others. You're going to be hearing the Queen, even the Queen's message, you'll be hearing as soon as we're finished with this program. All right, so still 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I think everybody, I think the most important thing, instead of doing even a recap, maybe to end off with something backing up what I said. And I'll probably just have to say it. You know, when you read the book of Solomon, right? Mm-hmm. It ends by saying, he says, come down upon the mountain of spices, right? And when we read the book of Isaiah, God actually links the ends of the earth with the isles. Remember we were doing that? Mm-hmm. The rock, the mountain. So a rock is a mountain, right? Mm-hmm. But if you, for the listeners, go and read Solomon chapter 8. The Bible tells us in Hosea chapter 14, God will come down as the latter rain, the early rain, the dew, the Holy Spirit, right? So the kingdom of heaven is within us. So he comes to us in this form, and he comes to us through messengers. But he says he come down upon it ends like this, upon the mountain of spices. What is the Isle of Spice? Where is the mountain of spice?
Oh, that's us.
That's us, right? Mm-hmm. And where we hearing this from today?
Well, the Bible.
The Bible.
I'm sorry, we can't go any further today, but it's been wonderful having you in here.
Thank you very much.
And of course, we're going to see you again soon. Yes. We're going to see you again soon. Folks, that's all the time we have for today's special edition of Hard Talk today. Actually, we were supposed to do this yesterday, but things kind of get a little croconius, so we couldn't handle it yesterday. So we just decided to do it today. All right. So it's been wonderful being here with you. I hope you all are having a very, very Merry Christmas. You're sending out your Christmas greetings before you go. Go right ahead.
Well, I wish everyone in Grenada, should I say a Merry Christmas? I wish that we would, I wish you a blessed Christmas, a Merry Christmas.
Yes, indeed. So, folks, that's all the time we have for today. And whatever you say and do, we hope you do it safe and secure. And together with your family today, behave all yourself. All right? Careful on the nation's roads. So in whatever you say and do it safe and secure. I want to be speaking to and with you and not about you. Love each and every one of you. We are out.
Greetings from the Government of Grenada. The following is a Christmas message from Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, national security, public administration, home affairs, ICT, planning, economic development, and physical development.
Fellow Grenadians, I bring you greetings of the festive Christmas season. I pray that the joy of the Christmas season spreads abundantly through your homes and that you embrace others in love, peace, and harmony. I pray, too, that the spirit of Christmas, the celebration of the birth of Christ, infuses our hearts, filling us with love and inspiring humility and generosity.